The evening was peaceful in the Carsons' quiet neighborhood. The kind of suburb where the loudest sounds were sprinklers clicking on and children's laughter fading as the sun dipped below the rooftops. Lydia Carson was at the kitchen sink, humming along to an old Fleetwood Mac song as she rinsed the last dinner plate. The scent of lemon soap hung in the air, and the faint breeze through the open window carried in the smell of fresh, cut grass. It was one of those tranquil moments that felt perfectly ordinary. The sort of calm you didn't realize you'd miss until it was gone. Then came the knock. It wasn't a polite tap or the rhythmic rap of a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. It was loud, 3 hard, deliberate thuds that echoed through the house. Lydia froze, the plate slipping from her soapy hands and clattering in the sink. The sound startled her more than it should have. For a second, she thought maybe it was a delivery driver, but who delivered anything that late on a Tuesday? She grabbed a towel and dried her hands as she walked toward the door. The knocking came again, louder this time. Whoever was outside wasn't just impatient. They wanted to be heard. Through the small window beside the door, Lydia saw 2 men standing on her porch. They wore khaki uniforms and black caps, both with shiny badges clipped to their chests. The shorter man had a clipboard in hand, the taller one was built like a linebacker, his hands resting on his hips. Lydia hesitated. The sight of the badges made her relax slightly. Maybe they were from the Homeowners Association. Still, there was something odd about them. She couldn't recall ever seeing anyone from the HOA dressed like that. Usually they just sent passive-aggressive emails about lawn height or Christmas lights staying up too long. She cracked the door open. "Can I help you?" The taller man leaned forward just enough to make her step back. "Evening, ma'am. I'm Officer Kent and this is Officer Ramirez. We're with HOA Security Enforcement." He tapped the badge, a gleam catching the sunset light. "We're doing our routine evening inspection." "Inspection?" Lydia echoed, frowning. "What inspection? I haven't heard anything about that." Ramirez, the one with the clipboard, glanced down and flipped a page. "You're Lydia Carson, right? 237 Pine Ridge Lane." "Yes." "Then you're in violation of Section 14B of the Neighborhood Appearance Code." He pointed his pen toward the driveway. "Your trash bins are visible from the street. It's a finable offense." Lydia blinked, turning to look through the doorway. Her trash bins were lined up neatly by the side of the garage, like they always were before pickup day. "They're out for collection," she said, confused. "Everyone on this street does the same thing." The Kent's expression hardened. "Ma'am, the HOA rules are clear. You need to move them immediately or face a fine. If you're refusing to comply, we can issue a citation on the spot." Lydia's discomfort grew. The way he said ma'am had an edge to it, the kind that wasn't about politeness but control. She glanced again at their uniforms. No HOA logo, just plain khaki shirts and cargo pants, the kind of outfit you could buy from a tactical supply store. The badges were shiny, but she couldn't make out any lettering besides. Security Enforcement. "I'm sorry," she said carefully, "but I've never seen HOA officers before. Usually, we just get notices by mail." "Do you have identification from the HOA itself?" Kent's jaw tightened. "You're questioning us." "I'm just..." He stepped closer, forcing the door open another inch. "We don't have time for this. You can move the bins now or deal with the fine later. It's your choice." Her heart began to thump faster. "I think I'll just call the HOA directly, if that's okay." Ramirez muttered under his breath, "Here we go again." Kent gave her a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You can call whoever you want, but right now you're obstructing a community security inspection." "This is ridiculous," Lydia said, her voice rising. "You can't just barge onto my property and..." That was when Kent's expression changed completely. The smile dropped. His eyes went cold, sharp, calculating. Before she could step back, his hand shot out and grabbed the edge of the door. He yanked it open the rest of the way, and she stumbled backward. "Listen here," he growled. "We're authorized to enforce compliance. You're not authorized to." The slap came so fast she didn't see it coming. A sharp, brutal crack across her face. The force sent her sprawling into the doorway, hitting her shoulder on the wall. The sting burned through her cheek, and tears sprang to her eyes before she even registered what had happened. For a moment, the world went silent except for the pounding in her ears. "You people think rules don't apply," Ramirez said with a sneer, stepping past Kent into the entryway. "I always think you're special because of your big houses and shiny cars." Lydia pushed herself up. "Date out of my house," she screamed. Kent smirked. "Now you want to play tough." Her vision blurred as fear tangled with fury. "My husband's coming home any minute. You need to leave." That made both men pause. Ramirez snorted. "Oh yeah, and what's your husband gonna do?" Kent laughed. A low, mocking sound. "Bet he's some office guy, huh? Probably the type who writes angry emails about parking lines." Lydia's pulse quickened. "You should go," she said again, trying to sound firm, but her voice shook. She reached for her phone on the entry table. Kent's eyes narrowed. Don't even think about calling anyone. But she already had the phone in her hand. Her thumb fumbled for the screen. The moment he realized what she was doing, he lunged forward. And then, over the pounding of her heart, came the unmistakable rumble of an engine, deep, smooth, powerful, a truck pulling into the driveway. Kent froze halfway toward her. Ramirez glanced through the open door and muttered, "Someone's here." The growl of the vehicle's engine cut off. A door opened and slammed shut. Lydia managed to whisper almost to herself, "That's my husband." Both men turned toward the doorway. Through the dying orange light of sunset, the figure of Jake Carson appeared, broad-shouldered, calm and deadly still, his navy Celticom faintly on the side of the truck behind him. He wasn't rushing, wasn't shouting. He was just looking, taking in the scene. Kent's posture shifted, his bravado faltering for the first time. Ramirez stepped back slightly. Jake's voice carried across the porch, quiet but heavy enough to make both men freeze. "What," he said, "did you just do to my wife?" The air in the room turned electric. Lydia felt a tremor run through her, part fear, part relief. The two impostors exchanged a glance, clearly realizing this wasn't the situation they'd expected to walk into. For the first time since they'd knocked, the house felt safe again, but only for her, not for them. Jake Carson stood at the base of the porch steps, his shadow long and sharp in the fading light. He didn't move at first. He didn't have to. His stillness was heavier than any threat. The kind of silence that came from a man who'd learned how to stay calm in chaos, how to measure violence before he unleashed it. His eyes moved once, from his wife's face, red and swelling, to the two men in fake uniforms standing in his doorway. Lydia felt her knees weaken in relief. "Jake." He raised one hand slightly, a subtle told her to stay back. "Step away from my wife," he said. His tone was low even. He might as well have been talking about the weather, but every syllable carried a quiet promise that made both men straighten. Kent, the taller one, tried to recover his confidence. "This is official HOA business, sir," he said, though the words came out thin, uncertain. "Your wife was in violation of neighborhood regulations." Jakey's gaze didn't waver. "You're lying." Ramirez stepped forward, puffing out his chest like a small man trying to fill a bigger shadow. "Look, buddy, we don't want any trouble. Just stay out of this, all right?" Jakey's voice didn't rise, but his jaw tightened. "You hit my wife." But Kid smirked, though his hands twitched at his sides. She was being uncooperative. Something in Jake's face changed then, an imperceptible shift from patience to precision. He climbed the 3 porch steps slowly, boots thudding against the wood. Every step seemed to pull the air tighter. "You know," he said quietly, "there's a rule about hitting women. The kind of rule that doesn't get rid down those matters more than any of your fake badges." Kent scoffed. "What are you, some kind of cop?" Jake reached the top step, the distance between them close to less than 2 feet. "Worse," he said softly. "I'm a teacher," frowned. "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" Jake moved before the words even finished leaving his mouth, a blur of motion. His hand shot forward, palm striking up under Kent's nose with the force of a piston. There was a crack, sharp and wet. Kent stumbled backward, hands flying to his face as blood sprayed across the porch. Ramirez cursed and lunged forward, swinging a wild punch. Jake sidestepped, grabbed his wrist mid-swing and twisted. The joint gave with a crunching sound that made Lydia flinch. Ramirez screamed and dropped to his knees, clutching his arm. Kent staggered, blood pouring from his nose, eyes wide in disbelief. "You broke my—" Jake grabbed the front of his uniform and slammed him against the siding hard enough to rattle the windows. "You came to my house pretending to be cops," he said, voice still calm. "You hit my wife. Now you're going to sit down and wait for the real ones." Kent struggled, but Jake's grip tightened around his collar. "You think you can just—" Jake's fist hit his gut once, hard and clean. The air left Kent's lungs in a choking gasp. He folded to the floorboards, wheezing. Ramirez tried to scramble away, but Jake caught him by the back of his shirt and yanked him upright. The man's fake badge clattered to the ground. Up close, Jake could see it wasn't even metal, cheap plastic spray, painted silver. He shoved Ramirez back into the porch railing, pinning him there. "Who sent you?" Jake asked. Ramirez's voice came out high and shaky. "And no one. We were just— Look, man, it was just supposed to be a scam. We do it all the time. Pretend to be enforcement, scare people into paying fines." Jake's expression didn't change. "And when they don't pay?" Ramirez hesitated. "We, rough him up a little. Just to make it look real. Rough them up." Jake repeated it like a bitter taste. He glanced at Lydia, who stood just inside the doorway now, one hand pressed to her bruised cheek, her other hand gripping her phone. Her eyes were wide but steady. She had called 911 minutes ago, her voice trembling but firm. "Kent, get, man, you don't know who you're messing with." Jake turned his head just enough to look at him. I spent 12 years overseas, he said, his voice low and even. I've dealt with people who thought intimidation was power. You're amateurs. Kent tried to push himself up, but Jake stepped forward and placed a boot gently on his shoulder, pressing him back down. Not hard enough to injure, just enough to remind him who was in control. From down the street came the faint wail of approaching sirens. Lydia exhaled shakily. They're coming, she whispered. Jake nodded slightly without taking his eyes off the men. Good. Kent glared up at him, blood streaking down his chin. You assaulted, you'll sue you for everything you've got. Jake crouched beside him, his expression unreadable. You came here with fake badges, assaulted a woman, and trespassed on private property. When those sirens stop out front, you're going to be lucky if you don't spend the night in a holding cell. Kent spat blood to the side. You think they'll believe you over us? Jake picked up one of the badges and held it to Kent's face. This looks like you printed it in your garage. You really think the cops won't notice? Kent's eyes darted away. Ramirez whimpered softly from the railing, still clutching his wrist. We didn't mean for go that far. She was yelling, and she was defending her home. Jake cut in. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried enough weight to silence both of them. The first squad car rolled to a stop at the curb, lights flashing red and blue across the quiet houses. Another followed seconds later. The sirens faded, replaced by the crunch of boots on gravel. Two uniformed officers approached cautiously, hands on their holsters as they took in the scene. Two bloodied men, one clearly injured, and Jake standing calm and composed, hands raised slightly to show he wasn't a threat. Sir, the first officer called out, what's going on here? Jake straightened. These two impersonated AA security, assaulted my wife, and forced entry into my home. Kent groaned. He attacked us! Look at my face. The officer's partner walked up, took one look at the fake badges on the ground and sighed. These are plastic, he said flatly. You guys serious? Lydia stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. They knocked on the door and said I was breaking HOA rules. When I questioned them, one of them hit me. She pointed to her cheek. The bruise had already darkened under the skin. The officer nodded grimly. Ma'am, we'll take it from here. Within minutes, both men were in handcuffs, Kent cursing and shouting about lawsuits while Ramirez muttered apologies to anyone who'd listen. The flashing lights painted the street in waves of red and blue as neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering. Jake stood beside Lydia on the porch, his arm slipping around her shoulders. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind exhaustion. You all right? He asked quietly. She nodded, tears brimming but not falling. I am now. He kissed her forehead gently. Next time someone knocks like that, don't open the door. A faint, humorless smile tugged at her lips. Next time, I'll just tell them my husband's home. One of the officers approached them with a clipboard. We'll need statements from both of you. Looks like these guys have been running scams all over the county. You probably just helped us shut it down. Jake nodded, eyes still on the patrol cars. The two fake officers were being led away, their bravado gone, replaced by fear. As the cars pulled out, their sirens fading into the night, Lydia leaned her head against Jake's shoulder. The porch was quiet again, the sky now deep blue and dotted with stars. Jake exhaled slowly, the tension finally leaving his body. Home's supposed to be safe, he said softly. It is, Lydia whispered back. Because you came home. And for the first time that night, the silence felt peaceful again. Because the look in Jake's eyes promised that the next few seconds were going to be very, very different.